Hello Internet friends, we're going to do a quick Omnisphere Pulsing Bass tutorial. The guide for this patch is going to be a video or a song by Even Torrent. Sounds like this. It might be a little loud, so watch your volume. So it's that pulsing bass. That pulsing bass that's behind there. And there's actually two basses. There's one that is more of a kind of a pad-like thing. So we're gonna make it. I don't have all of the subtlety, but the idea is something like this. And I've got it mapped to the mod wheel here, so you can see the mod wheel moves. So that's what we're going for. I started with an init, and in the A oscillator, I grabbed the Fearless Saw, which when you are in the synth, you can click on the word and go to Analog Timbres into Deep, and Fearless Saw is there. I automated the shape by choosing automation from here, and I modulated by an LFO. Sorry, you can't see LFO on the screen there. But let's show that modulation. So it became LFO4 in the end. And the depth you take down, and the target you move to the left from I believe it starts at the middle. And so you slide the shape over here. It's a sine-shaped LFO. And the rate is around 0.3 hertz, 20.29 hertz at this tempo. This tempo is 150, but I tend to keep this stuff free from tempo sync so that it can kind of slowly oscillate around. Let's take these other oscillators out and just listen to that so far. So you can see as it goes that way, it's a little darker, a little bitier, just slightly. The arpeggio is the default arpeggio that I just extended to 8 steps and then kind of made them more even with a little bit of an emphasis on the 5th one and the 1st one. A touch of, these are velocity levels. I'm on 8th notes. The length is just above half, and I'm halfway between the arpeggio velocity and the key velocity, which allows me to kind of hit it gently or hit it hard and still get some response, but have some variation based on where we are in the pattern. The other things that you should note is that where I'm playing in the keyboard, this oscillator is transposed 0 steps, and the tracking is on, as you might expect with a pitch. You'd want the tracking on. The wave shaper is on, and the shaper is also modulated. That happened to be LFO1, which has a similar shallow depth and a slow rate. This time it's 0.4. This one I made a little bit more of a triangle wave oscillation, so it hits one side. And this theme of 0.4 and 0.3, I kept so that there's kind of a 3 against 4 hertz thing going on. This shaper is at the first type, which is the default. Similar stuff with B. The shaper is in a slightly different place. The mix is in a slightly different place. But the oscillator is using Monster Fatty, and I'm also modulating this shape with LFO3. This is modified with LFO2. So LFOs 1, 2, 3, and 4 are modifying the shaper frequency for the wave shaper and the shape of the wave table itself. Monster Fatty and Fearless Saw. Monster Fatty alone sounds like this. This is a little hollower, a little more like a square kind of. Now, one thing that you're hearing that I haven't shown you is in the, I always forget to unzoom out of the oscillator. Over here in the envelope section, we've got a filter, and I pulled the attack and sustain and release all the way down, and the decay is at about 1 second. And the cutoff is modulated by the controller of the wheel, which is what we were looking at before. But having this filter enveloped here by a decay of about 1 second is part of what gives it the bow, 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 bow. It's a little flatter when you don't bring that up. And it's very short when you bring it too far down. And it tends to go flat if you use this juicy filter. So I am using a 24 decibel per octave juicy low-pass filter. Again, that cutoff is modulated by the mod wheel with a tiny bit of resonance in there. And so those are all of the things. That same kind of setup is used on the A as well. The decay is also 1 second there. Same filter. Then the C oscillator is a sub-oscillator, and you can see that here, and you can see that it's the Andromeda sign, which might be the one that they use. It's just the default. So we've got this kind of sub-bass pulsing in there. And not much was done there, although the filter was long enough to... The filter doesn't really matter. I left it at about 2.5 seconds. It's also the juicy 24 decibel. I didn't really pump the resonance, though. You could pump it to get it a little bit of... Other than that, there's nothing too exciting about the sub other than the C voice when you start with a default patch or an init patch. What's it called? Yeah, initialize clear patch or initialize patch. That C layer is going to be transposed down 12. My noise layer is almost inaudible, but I did put a little bit of noise in, and it does also have a basic 12 decibel filter and some envelope filter. It sounds like this. So if you can hear that, it's really just going... I do have tracking on, but it's almost inaudible. Where is the zoom out? This is where the one of the places you can control the gain of that. So it's 32 decibels quiet. Otherwise it would sound like this. And you can use a little bit of noise if you want. Then you add all those together, and you pull the filter down. And you've got kind of a nice, fairly square sounding a lot of what we're hearing is B. And then you can mix in A for a little bit of depth. And from there you can compress it. You could make the sub frequencies under between 80 and 170 mono and spread somewhere in there too. You could make 120 below mono and start spreading above 120 and just kind of give a little stereo depth. You could add a little delay or reverb to it. But you could compress it. You could try to transient adjust it a little bit, because this arpeggio's length feature doesn't allow you to shape the transients too much. You can make them a little shorter, a little longer, but you can't kind of adjust the shape or the curve of the transient with this technique. you would need to take a different technique than just using the arpeggiator. This is just a quick way to get something that's kind of close to these. One thing that I didn't do is there seems to be a little bit of almost a chorusing or spatializing that gives it a little bit of that hollowness, and a little bit of EQ might help with that, but all of that's kind of subtle shaping after the fact. And from here you can do a lot of simple adjustments. Once you've got some of the basics here set up, you can just start flipping through the wave tables here. Since B is our main one, we'll start there instead. So you've got all of these just watch with that juicy 24 decibel filter. It has that analog kind of flattening effect. If you pull it too tight, the pitch tends to dive a bit. And then it sharpens back up as you let the filter off, which is why I keep it at about a second. It takes just long enough to stay kind of in tune, where you don't have to tune things up. Oh, and if you want to add effects, you can also add some effects. Did I not have any effects on yet? Oh, I guess I didn't have any effects on yet. But you can try some of these presets and colorizers, and then if you do take the ARP off, you've got a nice kind of All right, I hope you enjoyed that, and take care.